teacher. So, David had asked me to come in and talk to you about accreditation. And I actually had asked several months ago if I could talk to you about it because it is not exciting, but it is the rules that we follow and live by every day. And so often I feel like we put things in place and people go, why the heck are we doing that? And there's always a reason, and it usually has to do with accreditation. So I just wanted to give you a high, sort of level overview of accreditation. And then we're going to go in a little bit into compliance as well, okay? I know it's an exciting topic. Okay, so we're accredited by ACICS, which is a national accrediting agency. We know that? Versus a regional. Okay. Does anyone know the difference between a regional and a national? Cindy?
I know that their demands are different, and they're recognized different. And because we have national, we like regional because the people would smile at us better in some circles. So that's what I know.
Anyone want to add to that? It's pretty accurate.
It's national, just basically here or within the United States, or regional. It could have a circumference of overseas. It will broaden our school scope, so to speak. And we would have more schools in different areas versus the smaller number that we have right now.
I don't think that's distinguishing, actually. Regional in the South is called SACS.
Oh, South, and
Yeah,
South
that's
only?
it.
Oh, I didn't
But
know
that's
that.
SACS. But each region of the U.S. has a regional accrediting
Right.
body.
Mhm.
But you can be accredited by SACS even if you have a campus in Seattle. Okay, it just depends upon who you get accredited by regionally. But there are 4 different regional accreditors. Okay. National accreditation is what we are, and it tends to be vocational in nature. Okay, regional is more academic. So the outcomes are different. Regional measures a lot on teacher credentialing in a different way than national does. National looks for experience in the field, hands-on experience, as well as a degree. Regional is much more specific to degree, etc. They don't care actually if you work in the field. Does that help? Okay. National, again, what we are, I'm going to tell you how we're measured, whether or not we're a successful organization. So, when Vanna is not here, because we're nationally accredited through ACICS, these are our measuring points. This is what allows us. Thank you. Will you do that? Is that happening?
She can do it. Just with
Thank you.
okay, you're on it. Put your back.
So we have 2 goals each year that we must achieve in order to remain accredited by ACICS. The first one is a 70% retention rate. That is our goal. If we sink below 60%, we are put on report. Okay. And I put overall and for each program. So there are our overall goal for the school, if you combine all our students up into one number, and then by program, it's specific. The shorter the program, the higher the retention rate is expected to be. Because the program is 15 months in length, for example, the MA certificate program, the expectation by our accrediting body is that we will retain more of those students than if they're in a bachelor's degree. That's how they build their retention rates. The other area in which we are measured is through placement. Okay. If you've been around 2 years, you've seen us do our employment craziness activities, because we need to have all of our programs combined, 70% or more, but individually as well. Okay. If we don't reach that, as a school, if we don't reach it, we become on report. By program, a program can get on report. And on report means you have 2 years to move to the right place, the 70 and 70, or you lose that program accreditation. Okay. If as a school you don't achieve these, you can lose your accreditation. So is that helpful?
Yes.
Did anyone know that? Sure.
And I was gonna just add, that's why we send the reports out all the time. That's why we have the requirement that whenever you have a student miss class, we wanna make sure that everyone's following up, because that all leads into the retention goal. And I think sharing, what I've tried to do is send you guys emails as a group so that you understand where we stand, who's on the report, who's at risk, so that we can maintain that number. And same goes for Michelle. The reason that we establish the relationships that we do with our students, in addition to educating them and having them want to attend, is so that when they leave, we know that they're getting the jobs, because they come back to us and they let us know, and we can help her with that report, because they found a home here and they want to make us proud, so to speak, and it all leads into those 70% goals. So that's why we really do what we do.
The one really important part around placement, though, the job has to be in the field of study. So if I am an MA student and get a job in manufacturing, even though I'm making $16 an hour at BMW putting parts together, that doesn't count. So you'll hear Michelle and her team say, Jane Doe works in manufacturing and she won't leave the $16 an hour job at BMW to take the $12.50 an hour job at GHS. Okay? That's when that team starts pulling their hair out. But it's true. I mean, we see that a lot. It's not uncommon, particularly in manufacturing. If they've been in Bosch, as an example. If someone's been at Bosch for 5 years, it's hard to get them to move because they're making $17 or $18 an hour. The job may not be what they want, but can they afford to take a $5 an hour cut at that level? So the answer is typically no. So it's really important, and in both of these areas, by the way, retention this month was the best we've seen in forever. We only lost 10 students as non-returns. 7 of them were sit-outs because of failures. It's an amazing number, guys, and you should be proud of yourself. We haven't had that number ever, I don't think. So that's super, but that's why we harp on retention so much. And placement is why we say it takes the whole campus to get involved with both of these things, because we find out through Karen or through Brennan or through Kim about placements that maybe the MA student didn't call Jerry Lynn to tell her about. So it's through our network of communications that we find out a lot of these things. Okay? So does anyone know what our retention was last year for overall program? School, rather, I should say. Bet you Drew doesn't know.
I had it written down, but I couldn't recite it.
Anyone guess?
68.
69.
75.
Oh.
65. 65. Yeah, it was like 65 and some change, okay? Now, the range for healthy is 60 to 70. They want you to be at 70. We're not on report. Okay, we're at 65. The year before, we were at 67 point something. So we dropped last year in our persistence, and that makes me go crazy. We are tracking to probably be about 65, 66 this year. Our end of our fiscal, I think we're going to show some improvement, so I'm hoping we get back to like the 67% range, which is safe. I mean, we're still, 60 is where they start making it as school go on report. We do have 2 programs that are on report this year for persistence, for retention. One is the IT program, and that was because it's so darn small. And then MA missed their mark by about 10 students, which killed me. So this year we have a whole MA meeting once a week to look at retention to make sure we get off report so that we don't roll into year 2 on report. Okay? Questions on that?
Retention, is it for any reason that the person, it doesn't matter what the reason?
The only reason we can not count them as a drop is death, military service, and incarceration. Was there a fourth? Those are the three.
Okay.
Even if they transfer to another school in our program, in our system of schools, it's still a drop on us.
Unless if they transfer to a Brown Maxton.
Right.
But if it's an Argosy or South,
Right.
it's a drop.
Right.
What's the difference in retention and persistence?
It's the same thing. We use the word persistence here. I use retention because that's what they use in ACICS. Now, here's an important factor, okay, that people don't get. So let's say the IT program has 10 drops in it, and we bring back 3 of those. We now only have 7 drops. Bringing someone back in and re-entering in the same fiscal year negates the drop. That's why we have re-entry students, right? So even in Surge Tech and OTA, if a student fails a cohorted class and they have to catch up with the next cohort, if they come back before the fiscal year ends, which is June 30th for us, we go July 1 through June 30th, it takes away the drop. So it positively affects retention. That's why Karen Carnes, her job is to look at, identify re-entry students who either sat out for some reason or whatever, to bring them back in. And
How long, when a student is dropped for attendance, do they have to sit out before they can re-enter?
Drew?
They sit out the next month. That's
Unless
the-
No, I mean, I've got a student, for example, who's got 2 classes or 3 classes before she's done. I'm now friends with her on Facebook, so I'm thinking about trying to bring her back in, but it's only been about 3 months. So
that's-
how long?
No, she's okay, it's just a matter of having the class available now, that's
Okay.
gonna be the trick.
Yeah.
When they come in, one of the things that we have Karen Carnes check and we go to AJ is we say the student, is eligible to return, but when will you
When would
have
be good
the
time to do it?
sequence of classes available?
Which there will be in a couple months.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So
So,
if a student drops July 1st forward before June 30th, it counts as a drop for that year. If they return before the June 30th cutoff, they are no longer a drop, if they stay. Now, if they drop a second time, what do they count it, do you think? 1 drop. They're only 1 drop, because we track each individual person.
One of the things that we did put into place was, we had students that would drop for a number of reasons, and it was really easy for them to come back right away. So let's just say they were in week 3 and they were failing a class, or they didn't like the teacher, and they just decided that for whatever reason, they were just gonna sit out, so they thought, and then come back the next month. And that was becoming too easy, and they were using that as a way just to sit out of the class or take time off. So that's why we put in the rule that if you drop, then you're automatically sitting out the next month. There had to be a consequence to let them know that it's not really acceptable to just quit in week 4 and expect to get back in the next month. Yeah.
Any questions on retention or placement?
can you talk just a little bit more about the placement issue? I know you mentioned the whole issue of not switching jobs. I have a couple of students that just graduated, and one was with a job, he is in a situation, he's not gonna make a move. The other one took a job that I consider to be in her field. I don't know if we've considered to be in her field, but I was very excited for her. So I was just trying to understand that whole issue. What if they continue on to school? Does that count against us?
No, it counts for us.
Okay.
So if they continue on either here or to another school, so
Okay.
say they finish their associate and come back and want to take their bachelor's here or at Strayer or wherever, it counts, if we capture it, and we have to capture it on paper, et cetera,
Okay.
it counts as an ed waiver, and an ed waiver sort of just takes them out of the equation. It doesn't count as much as a placement would count, but it sort of just rolls them back out.
Okay.
So it's very helpful to get
So
that.
we should keep career services informed about anything we hear of our alums.
Absolutely. And that's why, if you remember really, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Whatever year we went from, the first year we had 16 graduates, the second year we had 179 graduates. And when we hit the 179,